All right, so you should be able to see my screen at the moment we have started our recording. We are ready to rock and roll. So again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. I see we have some returners of people for these calls, so welcome back. And for those of you who might be new or joining us for the very first time, we are so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us on this fine Tuesday. Last day of July, very exciting. So today's session, before we go ahead and get started, let's just go ahead and cover some little housekeeping items that we like to make sure everyone's aware of before we dive into our content for today, is that we are scheduled for about an hour. So we got a few minutes behind on the start, but that's okay. We're scheduled for about an hour total, so we have about 45 minutes of content, and then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. We may bleed over into that. Speaking of questions, if you have questions along the course of the presentation today, feel free to make use of the Q&A feature of the WebEx or even the chat. You can send your questions or chats directly to me, the host, Training Services, and I'll go ahead and make sure to check that window periodically and try and address questions. If they're particularly relevant, I'll address them at that time, or if there's something that maybe could wait till the end until later in the presentation, I will try and address them as well. And again, in advance, I apologize with my ineptitude with some of these windows today. If I miss your question, I will of course make sure to try and get to that at the end or address it in the post on community for today as a live training site. I don't want anyone's questions to go unanswered. Speaking of recordings being posted to the community site, I just want to make everyone aware that yes, this session is being recorded. You were all placed on mute as soon as you entered the WebEx call today. I'd like that to remain the State of the Union for the rest of this presentation. So if you could please keep yourselves on mute, that would be very fantastic because we are recording and we'd like to maintain the best audio integrity possible. When we are ready, when we've rendered this video, we will go ahead and post this session back to the live training post on the community site in Alteryx Academy. So that way, in case you weren't able to make it today or you want to revisit some of the concepts that we're talking about, you'll be able to do so. So give us at least till the end of the week and we'll make sure we'll get that up there for you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. As an introduction, hello everyone again. My name is Christine Bonthius. I'm the instructional designer here at Alteryx. You may know me from all areas of the Academy, whether that's weekly challenge or live trainings just like this one or some of those interactive lessons. I'm involved in a lot of things training here at Alteryx, my favorite thing about Alteryx. So let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, which is Alteryx Gallery and best practices. And just as a heads up, the scope in which we're going to be talking about Alteryx Gallery today is particularly from a user side, and it's meant to be a little bit more of an introductory session. So maybe for those of you who are just getting started with publishing your workflows to a gallery or want to know how to share these workflows that you're creating or share your apps with your colleagues, how can you make these most accessible, how can you limit some accessibility, we're going to go ahead and cover a lot of those topics today from the user perspective. And I say that and emphasize that as opposed to the admin perspective, which is very much a behind the scenes kind of role, and they are very different experiences. So I just want to make sure that you know what you're in for today. So let's go ahead and get started and see if, oh good, my windows do advance. So a bit of the agenda for today's session is we'll go ahead and give you a little bit of background as to what is coming for you in August in terms of live trainings. So you can put those on your calendar. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about maybe some workflow background, but a little bit of how to work with Gallery background and what the real benefit of working with Gallery is for you as an individual and maybe for you as an organization. We're going to spend a lot of time in Designer and Gallery today. Pretty much no presentation needed. We're just going to spend a lot of time actually in the product, which is I think the best way to just kind of see what we can do here. And then we'll talk about some avenues for support that you have in case you have any further questions after today's session. So in case you haven't been to our community site, which I presume most of you have as you are here for this session, you probably need to get that link somehow for today's live training, but I want to invite you all to become active members and participants in our Alteryx community. That's at community@alteryx.com. It's a fantastic site that is just chock full of knowledge in terms of discussion forums and knowledge base articles and really insightful blogs. It's just a wealth of information and resources for you to really advance your Alteryx knowledge and your Alteryx skills. It's also a great place to make friends, especially those friends who are probably just like us, nerds who love Alteryx. It's a great way to just connect with those peers, other people who might serve as inspiration in terms of use cases as to what else you could possibly do with Designer, or something you come across. Maybe you think it'd be really awesome if Designer did a certain thing or had a particular feature included. We'd love to hear about that. It's a place on Community for you to submit your ideas as to how you'd like to see the product evolve or what other features you'd like to see in upcoming iterations. So feel free to chime in and let us know your thoughts there. As I mentioned before, there's some insightful blogs, some really entertaining reads, really insightful reads as to how to work with the new Python SDK, all the way down to what that third-party core data engine can really do for you in terms of the allocate data, all the way into how the engine actually even works. So if you have any kind of curiosity as to anything Designer, I encourage you to go ahead and check out our blogs, and then also our developer community, which you can find in Alternation. It's your guide to getting started with developing your own tools, macros, apps with our HTML SDKs, Python SDKs, or just building these crazy macros that you want to share with the world. So we invite you to become active participants there at community.alteryx.com. And particularly within the community, we invite you to check out all of our resources that we have available through the Academy. We have interactive lessons that, of course, are there for you, and an upcoming course is coming. I'll give you a little teaser there. We have live trainings. Our calendar for August is completely built out. We'll go ahead and display those courses here in a minute, but for your future live trainings and registrations, you can go ahead and check it out there. And as I mentioned, this session is being recorded and will be posted back into the session of, or this section of the Alteryx Academy on the post for today's session. So you can look for that in case you want to revisit any concepts or share this with your colleagues at the end. We love having weekly challenges. Every Monday we post our weekly challenge, and it's like your fun little brain teaser to start off your Monday morning. It's a great way to kind of level up in terms of exploring what you do and don't know, or what else Designer can do. And this session that we have going on, or at least this week, is particularly fun because for those of you who were at Inspire in Anaheim maybe a month or two ago, you saw these 3 contestants take these weekly challenges, or take these challenges and do these challenges in front of thousands of people. And now you have a chance to do that maybe exact same process, maybe not in front of thousands of people, but hey, you know, invite your friends and neighbors over and solve these workflows right in front of them. It's kind of similar, but we're posting all 3 laps that those same drivers in the Grand Prix had to do in front of you at Inspire. So those are coming onto weekly challenges. I believe this week we just posted lap 2. So if you want to see what it took to become a Grand Prix champion, you have the opportunity to do so and maybe get yourself in the running to be our Grand Prix contender for next year. And then finally, if you're interested, we invite you to participate in our product certification. That's where you can test your Alteryx skills and become core certified, advanced certified, or even expert certified. So check that all out at academy.alteryx.com. So upcoming live trainings, here we are, end of July. Can you believe it? 2018 is just flying by. So we're going to be talking about Alteryx Gallery and best practices, and our calendar for August is as follows. So next week we're going to be talking about chaining applications together, so creating chained apps, a little bit more of an advanced topic, but it makes those processes really dynamic and how to update your interfaces depending on a user selection in maybe a previous interface tool. So it's really, I mean, if you have any familiarity with the interface tools or building apps, this may be a really good session for you to just check out and see what's possible and take your apps to the next level. Later on in the month, we're going to have parsing dates and times, so specifically working with dates and times functions with the formula tool, as well as the date time parse tool. And then on the 20th, we'll have Alteryx the SQL Analyst. So any of you who maybe are more familiar or have started out your analytics journeys, maybe you're a SQL whiz and now you're transitioning into using Designer, we're going to be covering a lot of those similar topics, how to do some of those similar SQL tasks and objectives, and how you can accomplish that same thing in Designer. And then finally, on the 27th, end of the month, we're going to be going over some tips and tricks with you. So some really nifty ways that will make you think like, huh, I never knew you could do that in Designer, and then you'll find every excuse to use that right-click, add all your tools to a tool container. So more on that at the end of the month. We invite you to join us for all of those sessions. But if you are not able, just know that we record all the sessions. So in case you can't join us at any point in the month, you'll be able to access those recordings about a week or so after the session is recorded back on Community. So All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk a little bit about, excuse me, our workflow background, but more so our work process background. So here is our use case for today, is that we have created an app, so an analytic application, to help automate an analytic process. The problem is that your colleagues have figured out that you're onto something. You've created something really good, and they want you to run it for them, but with their customized parameters. And you're getting tired of being their little click minion, so you want them to do it themselves. So our goals today are going to be understanding the benefits of sharing these apps, workflows, and macros that we're creating using the Alteryx gallery. How can we share what we've created with other people who might need to use these same processes? We're going to go over how to publish an app to the gallery. It's easier than it sounds, but we're going to go through some of those basics. And then once it's in the gallery, what else can you do with it? How do you share it? How do you manage the assets that you're creating and sharing through the gallery? So first, let's talk a little bit about the benefits of gallery use. Maybe you're just getting started with gallery. You want to know, why did my organization get this thing called gallery? Well, for a couple of really good reasons. And one is that sharing is caring. Using the gallery is a really great way to kind of, I put publicly in quotes here, but to share your workflows, macros, and apps in a very publicly accessible location. And what I mean by publicly is that I mean within your organization. So we do have a couple of different galleries that will specify the differences between. One is called the Alteryx Analytics Gallery, which is a publicly available website, which anybody can publish up an app or macro to that site. And then we have our Alteryx gallery, or what I'll call the gallery going forward, which when I talk about that gallery, what I'm talking about is maybe your organization's gallery. So this is maybe the gallery that your organization has propped up that you are sharing with just your colleagues and just your coworkers, as opposed to everyone in the world. So once you put your workflow or macro or app in that publicly accessible location, it makes it really nice, because now your colleagues can go ahead and click and run that app or use that macro or download that workflow, so you don't have to be the central point of dissemination. You don't have to be the person who says, okay, tell me what you want to click in this drop down, and now you want to add in this file. Like, no, they can all do it themselves. You can all publish to the shared directory and make it just really nicely, easily, and accessible. You can also grant levels of access to certain individuals for collaboration and increased efficiency. So what I mean by that is you can say, I want to share this workflow with nobody. I want to keep this for myself up in the gallery, or I want to share it with these very specific people, or I want to share it in this particular way, or I want people to be able to run this app but not download it. We'll talk about some of those little nuances and some of those settings as we move into the gallery. But so even though sharing is caring, we do have some limits as to how much or how you can share some of those assets, which may be valuable to you as you move forward with some of those development processes. Another big benefit is no Designer, no problem. So even for some of your colleagues that may not have access to Designer, maybe they don't have a license seat or something like that, you can actually, as long as they're members of the gallery, they have an account on the gallery, they can go ahead and run an app that you've published up into Designer. So even if they don't have access to the full-on desktop version of Designer, maybe like you have, to develop these workflows, it doesn't mean that they can't perform these same analyses and derive some of these powerful insights from these Alteryx-driven processes. So it really does kind of make this analytic process more accessible, again, for people who don't even know how to build a workflow, which is really kind of cool. In addition to some of the things that we're going to be talking about today in terms of gallery use, in terms of sharing workflows or sharing apps, there are other components, which we won't really talk about today, of the galleries that relate to automation. This is where you can schedule a workflow to run. You can schedule that analytic process. Your server admin or your gallery admin can provide database connections that can be shared across an organization, so that way you don't have to necessarily manage your own credentials. That can actually be managed for you by your admin. And you can also communicate with that gallery admin via notifications, or manage how you receive those notifications with that gallery admin or whatever's new in your gallery. So again, we won't really talk about that today, but just know that that is possible, which is really, really cool.